everybody. I'm Mel here from Energetic Principles, and we've got
Shawna with Neo Feminine Astrology. Good morning.
Yes,
or afternoon.
Wherever you are. And we are from the Feminine Principle podcast, and we're here for another full moon live, full moon lunar eclipse live. So this is kind of a special one that we got going on. So Shawna, you want to tell everybody a little bit about what we're going to be doing here today and what we're here to share?
Yeah, so I'm excited. We're going to chat about this particular full moon lunar eclipse. We'll talk about exactly what is an eclipse, why are they important, and we'll muse a little bit about this specific time, and then we have some tips for everyone for this particular eclipse season.
Yes, tips for eclipse.
Yes.
Because eclipses are powerful, right, Shawna? They're they life change in different ways, whether it's on the external, the internal, a little bit of both. Things start to shift during this time. So we're here to talk about shifts.
Yeah, and the whole purpose of why we do this live is so that people can comment and let us know how they're feeling. So to our listeners, whether you're watching this live or if you're watching the replay, you can leave a little comment and we'll put it up, and if it's a question, we can answer it, or if it's just a comment, we can talk about it too. So don't be shy to say what it is that you're feeling, even if that's something totally different than what we're talking about. This is like an open forum for our listeners of the podcast.
Yes, exactly. So if you are watching, feel free to tell us where you're watching from. And if you want to give us a little emoji of some sort, so that you can know if you can hear us. I know I'm having slight latency issues today, but hopefully that will figure itself out. So we'll just wait to get things started here for a second. And we still have our bells and whistles from last time that I'm trying to figure out. So we're going to bear with me on that. All right. Well, our last, just real quickly, our broadcast, our podcast this week is talking about the total lunar eclipse as well. So we have a lot to share with that, along with some other aspects that are going on this week. So if you haven't checked that out, I think it's episode number 37 is where we're at these
37.
Days? Yep. 37. Yep. What did you title it, Shawna?
It is titled Balancing Feminine and Masculine.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of that. I mean, that's the nature of a full moon, is that there's these two opposing kinds of energies. The sun is typically associated with masculine energy, and then the moon typically associated with feminine. We have a strong theme of that this whole entire week.
Yes. So we be balancing. So, all right. So yes, we're here for Lunar Eclipse Live. So let's just maybe first tell everybody when that is supposed to be. When is this happening? You have those exacts in front of you, Shawna?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're putting me on the spot here. I do. Yes. Okay. So, wait. Do I? Okay. No.
We know it's tomorrow, right? So it's Wednesday, January 31st. So we're a little ahead here.
So Pacific time, Wednesday, January 31st, tomorrow morning at 5:27 a.m. Pacific time, which is 1:27 p.m. Universal time. And then it's 11:27 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So again, that's tomorrow, Wednesday, January 31st. And it's exact at 11 degrees of Leo, for those of you that are paying attention to the degrees.
Yes. So if you have something at 11 degrees Leo or Aquarius or somewhere in that little nook, you're going to be feeling it.
And, I would even say Taurus and Scorpio, too. So any of the fixed signs, if it's within. So I'm curious, and maybe we can get in. I'm jumping ahead. But I like to keep a really tight degree orb. So I would say if you have a personal planet within 3 degrees or so of 11 degrees Leo, this would be more impactful for a person.
Yeah, absolutely. I might even go just a little bit, it's going to impact everyone. That's the thing, is if you don't have a planet there, no need to worry. You'll be in on the fun. It's just... you'll be shifting in other areas that it might be a little more subtle. But yeah, if you're right in there within 2 degrees of, like Shawna said, any fixed sign, and once again, that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, you are going to to feel the lunar vibrations of this total lunar eclipse. So we're talking about eclipses, right? So what the hell are eclipses? What makes an eclipse is the question. Yeah, what is an eclipse? Well, first of all, just what it is that it basically eclipses how we see our luminary. So in this instance, we have a total lunar eclipse. So our moon is seemingly getting blotted out by the Earth. And that has to do with its cycles, the way, because, we're all moving. Everything's moving. The moon's moving. We're moving. Everything's moving. And occasionally it gets to a point where it moves in just a way where it lines up to block something else out. And so that's why we look up at the moon certain times, and all of a sudden we see something moving in front of it. It's not that it's leaving us. It's just we're literally moving in front of it. The Earth is moving in front of it. So, Shawna, anything to dive in deeper with eclipses, or just what do you gotta say?
Yeah, what do I gotta say? So I think I'm just realizing right now it's really cool because, Mel, I think your area of expertise with eclipses is you really get down with okay, what is it? What is it logistically that's happening? And I think that's so important to understand the logistics, but then also the symbolism that's happening as well. And I love the symbolism. And I always think of the eclipses as this big reset button, because it is I love that term that you use, where the moon, the light of the moon is being blotted out. And so it's kind of we lose the light for a second and we're oh my gosh, I can't see. And then the light returns. And then the light returns, and then we can often see things in a different way because we've had a moment. And sometimes this can feel very unsettling. It depends on your temperament and what's happening for you at the time. But I really like that idea of it's this reset. And for me, that brings a sense of security within whatever chaos or upheaval it is that's happening. So yeah, that's
yeah.
What I would say about
that. I think that's right, because if we think about it, and we have all these technological innovations now that will tell us when the eclipse is coming. We can get prepared. We can set our calendars, go out, view the whole thing. But back in the day, that wasn't the case. It kind of snuck up on you, and then all of a sudden, what was giving light in your life, whether it's the light of the sun, which when the sun is eclipsed, it's eclipsed by the moon, or the light of the moon. Either way, what is deriving light in day or night goes away for a second. And, that used to be very fearful back in ancient times, because you didn't know what the hell was going on. Why is this thing that gives me life and that at night gives me light is all of a sudden gone? And it's momentarily happening. But if you don't have all that, pre-information, you can seemingly think that the world is ending.
Yes.
So our ancients, yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is why astrology is so helpful, because it puts everything into a context. We're oh, the world is not ending. It's okay. Yes. And we have a time frame. We have a timetable for how long is this feeling going to last? Because this is the question that I often get, when is it over, and that kind of thing. And so we have a time context, and then we have a psychological context. Okay, what are the and we'll talk about this, what are the themes as far as the signs that this eclipse is in, what other planets are involved that create an additional flavor, is it relationships, is it boundaries, is it more emotional, or is it more about analytical and thinking and these kinds of things? And so I really love astrology for this reason, because it helps us understand and make sense of things and not feel so crazy.
Yes. Let's not have it. It doesn't have to be so crazy. Oh, well, we have Sonia saying hi here.
Hi, Sonia.
Getting a peek from work. My girl Sonia. I know there's definitely some people sitting doing some work right now that might be popping in here and then. We see you. We won't tell. We promise.
We won't tell. It's okay.
Thanks for showing up, Sonia. Appreciate it. And we also have Nellie, who's coming in and saying
hi, Nellie.
Hi, Nellie. I'll be seeing you later. Thanks for joining us on the broadcast today. We're glad to have you. So yeah, we're basically okay. So we're talking about eclipses and the fact that our luminaries, our sun and our moon, its light gets eclipsed in some ways. Well, there's kind of a reason for that, and it has to do with something called the nodes.
What the fuck are the nodes?
What are nodes? What are nodes? Is that something? Is that like a skin tag? I don't know. No.
Sorry to say.
No, sorry to say. No, it is. Well, they're not actually anything. That's the funny part. Is they're mathematical points that are basically aligned to give us eclipses. So, Shawna, do you want to throw in your knowing of nodes? Your noting?
Yeah. Okay. So this is the thing with. So there's a north node and a south node. They're opposites, just like the full moon kind of aspect. There's a lot of different philosophies and different kinds of symbolism associated with the nodes, but in essence, it's related to growth, something new coming in, and then something falling away. In other philosophies, it can be related to our current life, what it is that we're evolving into, and then even past life, things that we're making peace with or that we're transforming in some way. So it's this dynamic of growth and then falling away or regenerating something. And so this is like this energy of growth and then falling away or dissolving is really embedded in an eclipse, because an eclipse happens when a lunation, a full moon or a new moon, comes close to one of the nodes or to both of the nodes. And so so this is why we feel things changing and things shifting. And it often feels as though there's a certain sense of karma or destiny, or like it was meant to be, you were in the right moment at the right time, because the nodes are this essence of like, there's something spiritually that is growing. And there's something spiritually that wants to be like moved or transformed or maybe even dissolved and regenerated in a certain way.
Yes, I agree with all that. And it's really, it's really comes down to us balancing these energies, because whenever we have an opposition, it creates some tension in our life, no matter if it is something like the nodes that we're talking about, or if we have oppositions in our chart or oppositions in the planets as they move around. We feel this tension, and we have to usually it's a time when we make decisions in our lives, actually, when we're coming out to these two different separate points here. And so we might find that this eclipse or any full moon in general has us releasing certain things for a greater balance in our life, but also making certain decisions. Because a lot of times when we have to release or make changes in our life or accept things that are coming on the outside, we have to decide to do things. We have to decide how we're going to react. And so we're basically on this balancing scale a little bit. And the beauty of the nodes, like Shawna was saying, how it kind of brings like fateful things into our lives, and we do balance that, soul growth direction versus letting things fall away. We also find our talents and what we're like naturally good at in these areas, and how we can bolster that to our growth. And sometimes we have talents in these areas, and other times they're like things we're so good at, but they just really don't serve our purpose. And so that's where we have to find our balance, is we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. If we have this, thing that we're good at, we just learn how to balance it more in our life and our expression, I think. And the nodes are powerful things, Shawna. Don't you think? Like, they're just really help. It's like our North Star in a sense, that we're going towards. And so when we have these eclipses, we're getting these moments, whether they're on our nodes or not. We all have individual nodes. So that's the thing, is right now our nodes are in Leo and Aquarius, right? And what is that, about 18 months it stays in that axis? But we're all born with our nodes in different places. And so that affects our own chart in some way, to liken to what we were saying earlier of how we're directed in certain fateful things in our life. So yes. All the nodes.
Yeah. And I really like what you say about, especially the South Node being related, not just to things that we want to release or get rid of, but it's also related to talents that we have and things that we can use. It's like inner resources. And so I think at this time, and we'll talk about this in a second as far as like the significance of the signs Leo and Aquarius, but it's like, okay, what talents do we have now that are kind of like wanting to be expressed? What resources do we have that maybe we haven't used, and how can we use those in a different way?
Yes, and perfect segue, Shawna, because that's the thing is like these are, because it's an opposition, it's basically tapping into this axis that we have in our charts, and that's where the house positions come into play. So depending on in your own chart where the houses lie for this particular eclipse is where you're going to, you know, be looking at those things that we're talking about and those talents, and or maybe even talents in the moment, because we change as people, I hope. And so as things move, we might find ourselves engaged in new talents or new ways of being as we get eclipsed in certain areas. So let's talk about these areas, because we are in the Leo and Aquarius axis. And so there's Leo and Aquarius themes. And, you know, we have Leo, the lion, who's very heart-center based and can be a little self-centered, but in a good way, because it's like, hey, this is me, you know, check what it is I do out. It's very creative energy. And yeah, it has no problem with being in the spotlight. Versus Aquarius, which is also a very individual type of energy, but it likes to be with the group, or how do I, you know, help, you know, humanity, or where's my place in community? Where do I belong, sort of thing, and with who? And so we have these basic, this kind of, you know, polarity between the individual and what they have to offer creatively, personally, and then how that fits in with society and our role we play within the greater world. And that's just one facet, really. But Shawna, what do you have to share about the Leo Aquarius polarity?
Yeah, so with this polarity, I always think of tribe and I think of trauma. And there was a talk so it was one of the first SDAS meetings that I went to, San Diego Astrology Society. And Mel, I know that you know who I'm thinking of, but I can't think of her
Deborah
name.
Parker.
Yes,
It's so funny. If you're watching this, Deb, at some point, yes.
Deb, yeah. So it was one of the first lectures that I went to, and her whole talk was about the axis of Leo and Aquarius, and she made this case that this axis is about, and I'm paraphrasing it. It was quite a while ago, so you know, check out her work for something more, you know. But this is what I got from it, was that this axis is really about where we have trauma and how that trauma can be healed through community, how it can be healed relationally, and because both of these energies, Aquarius and Leo, they're about giving something, bringing something in different ways to people, to the tribe, and then how is it that we're accepted or rejected when we do that? And there's a lot on the line when we do that. There's a lot on the line when we share something in a Leo kind of way that's like sharing something that we're excited about, a creation, a piece of poetry, a thought, something that comes like from passion and from the heart, that's very vulnerable. And then when we do that in an Aquarian way, it's typically where it's like, okay, I've created this thing, it's useful, it's often something that's like kind of ahead of its time, it's innovative. And there's a lot on the line there too, because, you know, are we going to be seen as crazy because we're doing something differently? And so I think with this access, a lot of those things may come up where we're called to share something.
Yes,
and then,
like that.
Yeah. And I think it's like, yeah, we might be accepted, we might be rejected, but that doesn't mean that we should not take up the call to act, because it's important.
It is important. You have to take that first step yourself. And sometimes we just don't know where it is. Like, we know in our hearts what we want to do, but we don't know necessarily always where to put that. And that's an issue that can come up at this time, because it's the idea of us having our own, Leo special destiny in a sense. And then where does that fit in the public? Who's going to help support that? How do I feel confident enough in myself in order to put that out into the world and hope that I'm going to be received and accepted by others? Because that's a really big thing with Aquarius, is that sometimes it can feel out of balance with being accepted in the world, or really feeling like it fits in, because there is this uniqueness to Aquarius energy, and why it can be known as the alienated person or the outcast sometimes, because you really are your own person, and how that fits in with the rest of us trying to be our own people is the question. And so that's why it's very important to really truly discover where you belong, and to pay attention to energy that is not really helping to strengthen that. And I think maybe with Aquarius South Node being there, because South Node, once again, like we were saying earlier, might be some areas that we're releasing certain things, so that we can bring in new in our life. And so if we feel we don't belong in certain areas, or we want to try, kind of shifting into new modes of expression, I think this is now the time, basically, in these years, as we're in this polarity, for that energy, I think.
Yeah. And it feels as though maybe there's something that we have to give that's innovative, that is Aquarian. Tools, inner resources, or even just an idea. And then I think about, like, how can we take that South Node and then bring it up into the Leo energy? So maybe it's expressed in a way that is playful and light, and it doesn't have to be so like, like we're here to save the world, which is kind of like an Aquarian mentality. Like, how can it take on a more playful and fun kind of bent?
Yes, because the North Node is in Leo. So we're pointing towards that Leo energy. But once again, like you were saying earlier, we're finding a balance. We're pointing towards one area, but we're finding a balance within the two. So, I think this is one of those eclipses that, get in touch with your heart. Because what your heart is speaking right now is really, the meat and potatoes of what's going on. And so, your heart's kind of the monitor right now. So hook that heart up, see what it's saying, get the readout on it, because I think that's going to help a good deal. Anything we've covered Leo, Aquarius themes. And if we have any watchers out there that are Leo or Aquarius, or want to elaborate on that polarity, or the energy that you feel as being that sign, or even what you've experienced, let's throw this in here real quick, Shawna. This is actually a pair to the eclipses back in 2017, right? So we are talking about picking up where we left off from last August. And so what happened last August? What happened at the, August and on through the year for you? Because those types of themes are going to be picked back up at this time. And we're probably going to, I feel like we released a lot in that area. And I think that this is more of because it's attached to the North Node, it's more of, going forward now. We're attaching to new things. We're releasing certain emotions that, are keeping us from pursuing what it is that we would like to now attach ourselves to. And so where were you then?
Where was I?
Anything to add? Yeah, where were you, Shawna?
So I think that's so important for a few different reasons. Because number one, we had the Great American Eclipse in August, and that was a biggie. That was a very intense eclipse. And
yes.
So this is the thing is, with most things in astrology, it's not like, oh, there's an event, it happens, and then we move on and we never think about it again. Like, it doesn't really work. Like, life doesn't work that way. We have these themes that we're always working through, and things change and evolve over time, but there's always like this essence of what it is that we're working through and what it is that we're experiencing. And in this case, what we're talking about today, it's that Leo and Aquarius polarity that we're working through for about 18 months or so. And so this 18-month period started with the eclipses in February 2017. And so, I would look back at February, but really I would look back at August 2017, because that will give more insight, because those eclipses were more prominent. They were more intense collectively. And so I would look at that and notice, what happened on the outside. How did you feel about it? And what was the symbology behind what happened? I wouldn't look at it so literally, like, something like this happened, or, I met so-and-so, or this broke in my life, or I moved, or whatever. Like, yeah, maybe that stuff happened. But like, what did it require of you? What was your internal experience? And what did you learn? What types of emotions and like ways of being did it call from you to come forward? And I think that's what we'll feel a little bit with this eclipse as well.
Yes, because hindsight is always 20/20.
Indeed.
So if anything, to fully take advantage of this eclipse, we can look back at those times. And like Shawna's saying, I wouldn't get into the nitty gritty of the details of it. Look at the bigger picture. Look at the themes. Look at what was shifting in your life, and whether it's areas of work, how you relate to money, relationships, spiritual understanding, whatever, that's actually the pinpoint and the key into where this axis is hitting in your chart, and kind of the themes that you're moving through for this 18-month period that basically get triggered by these eclipses, as we have our lunations in these zones. And what's different about the lunations that we're about to have versus the ones back in August is that it's flipped. So our lunar eclipse in August 7th, I believe, was on the South Node. And so we were talking about the South Node earlier, and how those are themes of release, or maybe bringing old talents back into our lives, or finding a balance in the things that kind of suck our energy from us and what gives us light. And so we released a lot then. And then that solar eclipse was conjunct the North Node back then. So we were getting events from outside of us that were basically directing us to this new energy that we're to follow, whatever that ended up meaning for us. And so now we're in the reverse. We're attaching emotionally to the next. And then this solar eclipse that we're going to have on, Shawna, you got it, February 15th, I think. I should know that. So. I'm going with that. We're sticking with that. And if that's not right, oh well.
Well, and what's really interesting about that eclipse, Mel, is so that'll be the solar eclipse in Aquarius, right? And it's exact at 27 degrees of Aquarius. And which is like within a degree of being exactly opposite the Great American Eclipse. And so that to me is really interesting, because it's like, okay, especially whatever happened then, like I feel like this lunar eclipse that's happening on January 31st is kind of like amping us up to move towards whatever it is that's kind of like a counterbalance to whatever happened in August 2017.
Exactly.
So I'm really curious to see how we feel.
It's hard to say. I mean, I already feel this lunar eclipse, and I personally have my Mercury Jupiter conjunction in Leo directly on this eclipse. So I'm feeling it. And I know that other people are too. I've thrown some things out there. I did an article if you want to dive in deeper about the nodes, and what scientifically this looks like how do we get to this position to begin with? And then diving deeper on the eclipses, the polarity, what is known as the Saros cycle, which is a bigger picture view of the eclipses, and different ways to work with the energy. I have that all on my page at energeticprinciples.com on a recent blog post. post. But I posted that on my Instagram page, and I was amazed at how many people were already like, I'm feeling it. And this was a couple of days ago. So we're all feeling this rush of energy in some way or another, like we would with any full moon. But I think this one, like any eclipse, is a turning point. It's a time when we basically are shifting gears in our lives in some ways, and we're shifting gears emotionally right now. So let's shift.
Yeah. So I'm curious, do you, with, because I have this too. People will start reaching out to me and being like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah is happening. So I always like to look for like the common thread, and I'm curious, Mel, what do you notice, if anything, is like the common theme with what people are feeling already leading up to it?
I think so far I've encountered a lot of people that are feeling strong, actually. Like,
Nice.
I one lady commented how she's feeling the lioness roar,
Ooh,
build up
I love
inside
that.
of her. And that's exactly what it is. Cause we have to remember that Leo and fire in general, is a passionate energy that is usually attached, with confidence. And so I think there is a lot to this lunation that is having us, emotionally attach ourselves to a new, way of inner confidence. And then if we have certain habits or bad patterns that are like keeping us, because it all relates emotionally in those kind of situations.
Yeah.
I think that we're releasing a lot of that so that we can become that confident, energy that we need to work through this.
Yeah, I think I'm reflecting. I noticed a lot of that, like issues around confidence and definitely self-expression and things like this, the Leo themes. And I also, it's kind of funny, I had someone reach out to me the other night, and she was like, man, like, I can't wait to like watch your video when I get home for this week, because people were just like melting down around me like everywhere. And then I was like, ugh. And so, I think that's an interesting piece too that I would want to touch on, is that it does feel important to maintain our own sense of, whether you call that confidence or boundaries, or like basically not taking on other people's stuff, because if a person is very empathetic and emotionally sensitive and available, and then everyone else is going through these changes, then it can be hard to like hold your own energy. Yes. And I think that's a part of what this is too. That's a part of that Leo, like, okay, I don't need to perform or like do something to make you feel better, because like you're in charge of you and I'm in charge of me. And so I think that's maybe a part of what's happening for this eclipse as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because once again, we're talking about Leo energy. We're talking about me,
Yes.
Are you, but you as me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's very important. That's very important. What is it that you need? Where is it that,
yes.
What is it that you emotionally need? And we talk about themes of appreciation with Leo too. That's a big theme on our podcast. We got Shawna with a Leo moon here. So she's familiar. You're familiar with this moon, in many ways.
For better or worse.
For better or worse. And so there is that idea of appreciation that comes in. And so we might be questioning, what it is we put out there, if it is being fully appreciated, if, how we can even appreciate ourselves in more ways. Because that's the thing, is like, it's not up to the world. Here we go. Here's the polarity with the whole Aquarius thing. It's not up to the world necessarily to appreciate us. Yes, that feels good. And we do need that. But at some point, it's all about that self-love and how we appreciate ourselves and what it is we have to offer that is going to give us the confidence we need, basically, to move through all these things. And so that could be an issue up that right now for, to look at.
Yeah, definitely. Where do you find validation, and does that work or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so to get back into what you were saying, Shawna, about people being, watching people melt down around them. Well, we got to keep in mind that Leo can be dramatic. So there is a chance that there is a chance, a greater chance than most, that if people aren't fully integrating with their hearts in certain ways, and we're all guilty of that at different times. No one is perfect. But these are the types of energies that could come out that we kind of get a little dramatic about something, or, we're just so passionate about how we're feeling that, if we feel that tension, because keep in mind, we're talking about opposition, we're talking about this polarity. If we feel that tension, Leo's, shadow go-to might be to get all in a huff, or to like turn the camera to me, like pay attention. I don't feel good, I don't like this, and so just be aware for that in yourself and for others. If people are melting down around you and it's causing a big display, have compassion for them, but also take care of yourself in that situation.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think in that case, if someone's having a meltdown or they're, whatever, like maybe they can just let them do their thing and you don't need to fix them. I think that's the biggest thing, is it's not your job to make sure everyone is cool. Like they have their, one of my mentors, Carrie Samuels, she would always say, like, don't worry about other people. Like, they have their own spirit guides. They have their own guardian angels. They got it. Like, you don't have to fix them. And so, we just have to worry about our own Leoan kind of vibe at this point.
Yes. So that being said, we might have already gotten kind of into that whole thing, but, let's talk about tips for eclipse some tips. So I had said in the article that I wrote about, what I found fascinating was actually how in ancient times, and especially with monks and like Buddhist monks, they would take the days of eclipse as a day of observation. And I know we can't do that all, especially when eclipse is on a Wednesday. It's a hump day. You're probably
like
out doing something. But it also is very important, even if we just take a little bit of time for ourselves to observe, what's going on with us internally. Because once again, we're having a lunar eclipse. So we are manifesting things in a shadow side outside of ourselves, but a lot of that is happening on the inside. So how can we look at this, take this time basically to have a day or 15 minutes of observation, so we can look at how we're feeling and assess that? Because the thought is that whatever we're feeling is magnified by several times during an eclipse period. So say the lunar eclipse is less. I think it was like 1,000 times magnification, good or bad, but it still sounds like a lot. And then a solar eclipse is said to be 100,000 times, so yikes. But so the tip here is basically to have a moment for yourself, check in, and then B, keep it positive, like let's stay positive, because if that's true, if it's true, what do you have to lose by staying positive for a day to help manifest things and grateful in your life, and then just keep that up, because sometimes it's good to be positive every day in whatever way we can. So I don't know what you think about that, Shawna, or what you have to add.
Yeah. Okay. So I have agreement and counterpoint to that.
Okay.
So I think that it is so important to reflect, and it doesn't have to look like meditating and clearing your mind. It can be like going for a walk. This is why I made the 2018 Moon Journal, because it's so hard for people in our society to find time every single day to journal and to reflect. And so the lunar cycles are a nice anchor for this. And especially, like you're saying, with the eclipses. Marianne Woodman said something like, if we don't know our inner world, if we're not connected to our inner world, then our outer world is just always going to be a mess. And like those two are connected. And so the only way that we can connect with our inner world is to just notice what's happening in there. Like, how are we feeling? And that often stillness works very well, but really just the practice of saying, okay, like, how am I actually feeling about this? What's really going on? And turning our focus inside instead of outside to try and fix things is often very helpful. So I love that. As far as the being positive, I think I look at that in a different way because I think there's so much emphasis on being positive and being happy, and that can create a lot of pressure, especially when things feel like they're in flux. And so I like to look at that as like when we do go inside and look at how it is that we're feeling, can we not judge that? And if we're feeling like unsettled or anxious, just let that be. And we don't have to change the feeling, because by the very nature of like looking at it and feeling it, it will actually change. And so we don't have to manipulate our feelings into feeling something different. The more that we can not judge ourselves for feeling a certain way, the more that those feelings actually change. And then we do become happier and more positive, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but that's what I think about that.
Yes. So, I agree with that, but I also think if we've been in something emotionally for too long and we're talking about releasing, at some point you have to stop feeling it, because unless you change, and this is the thing, is we're talking about emotions, but we also have to pepper in the idea of the mind, and the mind is, and this could play to a lot of people that are having this access right now in their 3rd and 9th houses, because if you're having it there, then staying positive is going to be kind of essential. But if you're having it other places, the mind might not be so in it. And yeah, you do have to feel that so you can release. So it's kind of a case by case scenario. And yes, you can't be positive all the time, because that's unrealistic too. But if you've been chewing over the same thing forever, and you kind of have this misery loves company type of vibe, then it is time to be like, hold on. Let's look at this a little bit differently. I know I feel emotional about this, but how can I release that by being grateful and looking at what it is that is positive in my life? Because I think by switching that focus, that can help. So I totally agree with you, Shawna, and it's just kind of case by case scenario.
Yeah, no, and I love that actually. And what I hear you talking about is like, how do we not get fixated on something? Yeah. How do we not get which is a possibility for the fixed signs that we're right. Leo and Aquarius and Taurus and Scorpio, they're fixed signs. So they will like hunker down on an idea or an emotion. And so, yeah, I think that's super important for sure, is like, if it's something that we've been like, we have our little hooks on it, how can we release that, that hook, that fixation, that like digging deeper and deeper into the same thing.
Yeah, and I think that actually has a lot to do with Jupiter being in Scorpio right now, if we really want to get down to that. We won't get into it, but we'll get down to it. So we have Olivia, who is saying, hello, Olivia.
Hi, Olivia.
So she's having a friend who's having surgery tomorrow, literally at the time of the eclipse. So she's a Leo rising, which is good for, I'm getting chills as I'm reading this. Any advice should I pass on to her? Well, the fact that she's a Leo rising and she's having a surgery while we're getting eclipsed in the North Node, I don't know. That seems kind of, the first house is your body, like it's your physical well-being. And a lot of times people have surgery when in those types of conditions because they have to. So I don't know what you think, Shawna. I mean, I feel good about it. I think that most of it might actually have to do with her emotionally working through having to have the surgery in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. I think it feels really important. It's kind of crazy that she would have it at the time of the eclipse. And so number one, I would totally want to ask lots of questions and know more about the context of it. But, we can't do that today. So that being said, that's my curious mind. I would say, I would imagine that this surgery is probably very important to her. Like of course it's probably important because it's something literally changing in her body. But I agree, Mel, it's like, what are all of the emotional, mental, and even just, lifestyle situations that are coming about because of this surgery? Is it something that's resolving an issue that's been going on for a while? Is it something that will affect her life going forward. And what I would say is that this is a time for her to take ownership and responsibility and empowerment within herself, to focus on her well-being. And I know that's important when there's a surgery, but especially because this is in her first house. The North Node in Leo is in her first house. So it's a time of her like celebrating herself. And so for sure, lots of self-care, but also like asking for help when she needs it. Those are things that may come up a lot. And like, how can she get what it is that she needs? Ask for it and not have to sacrifice something for someone else. It's like more, how are people helping her, and how is she building up her own self-esteem and connecting with people that support her in doing that.
I like that. And just thinking about the fact that we're talking about a full moon, and the moon is, governing her 12th house. Maybe she's been dealing with something for a long time, and now it's time to fully release that and let it go. Because once again, we're talking about a lunar eclipse, which is more about the internal process and what's happening inside. So I'm hoping that she's taking care of something that is better for her in the long run. And if so, I think that things are going to turn out. But like Shawna said, when you're talking about surgery and health related things, you got to look at a lot of different things.
Yeah, you got to look at the whole context.
Yes. So take all we said with a grain of salt, of course, and give her our well wishes, of course.
Yes. Lots and lots of love to her. And thank you for asking. And, for sure.
And for stopping by, Olivia.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we've said a lot about some eclipse action today.
Indeed.
Yes, I'm ready. How about you, Shawna? Are you ready for?
I'm ready.
Ready for tomorrow?
Yes.
She's ready. I'm going to be out there early. I'm going to try to catch it with my camera because we are in eclipse area over here in San Diego. I want to wake up that early. I know. We'll be recording our next podcast, actually.
We will.
While we're a little after we're getting eclipsed here. So let's talk about that real click as I clicked. Let's talk about that real quick. So we have our next episode that's coming out next week. We're not there yet. We still have an episode this week, but we have number 38, Your Lucky Break. You're going to want to listen to that, right? What is this lucky break? So Shawna, you got the breakdown of what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, so in that episode, we'll be featuring Tina Fey, the comedian and producer. She is hilarious. I fucking love her.
Me too.
And I like her because she's got like this, she's funny, of course, but she also talks about real stuff. And I love that she really represents like the work and the effort and then the lucky breaks that we receive when we do really stick with things and when we go towards something that we're very passionate about and we put our all into it. And I think that's important with the eclipse that we've talked about, but then also next week we'll have some aspects with Jupiter, and we'll have the last quarter moon in Scorpio. And so it feels like a time of intense feeling, but also where things may open up, and we'll be in between eclipses too. So we'll be kind of in this midpoint of where we're sussing out the opportunities, the things that are opening up for us, what it is that's growing, what it is that's dissolving. And so I think it'll be a really interesting week.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're in the thick of eclipse season. So, it's not just these days, it's this whole month basically. And through, through much of February. So, these lunations, all the ways that the planets are aspecting right now are important, but the lunations are incredibly important. So I think that, last quarter in Scorpio is going to shed a lot of light on where we are, where we're going, how we're moving in between this lunar eclipse to the solar eclipse. And so I think it's going to be a hell of a week as usual.
Yeah,
I say that every week, but really so on this one. So if you want to come and check that out, that will be happening. It'll be going live on Sunday, February 4th at midnight. So all our episodes every week, they come out and they happen Sunday at midnight Pacific time, they are there for listening, whether on iTunes or Podbean. YouTube, you have to wait till the next morning when I wake up because there's no way I can set that up. So YouTube's a little more leisurely. But yeah, so it'll be up for listening on Sunday. So all right. So just to how do you become more involved in the podcast? Speaking of the podcast, what is it that you can do to help, support us in this journey and let us, help us support you along the way, support the community, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say too that it's always so nice to hear from people who listen, and we appreciate everyone, whether you're watching this now or you're watching the replay, or even if you listen all the time and you don't ever say anything, we still appreciate you.
Yes.
And so if you want to show your appreciation for the podcast, if you get a lot out of it, if you like listening to us and you get lots of, helpful inspiration and guidance, you can show appreciation by becoming a patron of the podcast. And so you can do that by going to feminineprinciple.podbean.com and sign up there. There's a little button that says, I think it's at the top right-hand corner, it says become a patron, a little green button. And if you want to get more involved, you can follow the Feminine Principle podcast on Instagram or Facebook as well.
Yes. So yeah, once again, that just clarify, that's feminineprinciplepodcast.podbean.com.
Oh yeah. What did I say?
A little podcast, Feminine Principle. You kept it simple, which is probably how I could have kept it in the first place, but I had to add that podcast on there.
No, the podcast is important because that's what it is.
It is what it is. So yes, we are down there if you want to show your appreciation in a monetary form. And you get show notes every week. I do this newsletter that, gives you a quick little get in there, see what's going on for the week, and then listen when you can. So that's always fun to do. So, all right. Well, where can you find us individually? You can find me at energeticprinciples.com and at Energetic Principles on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, anywhere that they have those types of things, I am there. And like I said earlier, if you want to read a little bit more into this eclipse and tips around it, some, specifics, scientific, astrological, all these things. It's a long, but
it's very thorough.
It's
very
thorough.
Good. Yeah.
It's thorough in my Saturn and Virgo manner, in my Capricorn moon.
Would expect nothing less.
It is thorough. So if you want to go check that out, you can find that at energeticprinciples.com. So Shawna, where can they find you?
Yeah. Well, and so before that, Mel, do you have any events or anything like that you're doing that are coming up? I can't remember.
I can't remember either. But I don't have any. I have some private events, but I can't advertise those. But I do have. I've reformatted a service of mine that has been going very well, and I've been enjoyed sharing it with other people. And that is, if you're here local in San Diego, or if you're anywhere around the world and want to do a Zoom call, I do what I call Tarot Meets Astro. And it's a 1-hour consultation for a low price of $60 that we basically just do a full tarot spread and we look at some of your astrological placements and kind of what's going on currently and just get to the heart of a matter. So if you need anything in that realm or are interested in setting up a session, that's what I have going on right now, along with some other services. But I'm finding that one is a very popular one. It's an affordable one, and it utilizes both disciplines, which kind of makes it unique. So
yeah, I love that. It's kind of like it's kind of cool because it's like a personal application of like what we do with the podcast.
Exactly.
It's like if you listen to the podcast and you're like, yeah, I'm feeling this, but you want it to be more specific for yourself, then it's got both of those things, the tarot and the astrology.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, nice. It took me a second to figure that out myself, and then I started doing it and I was like, wow, I really like the flow of this. And it keeps it interesting. So if you're interested in that type of thing, feel free to hit me up. So Shawna, where can they find you? What do you got going on?
Yeah, so you can find me on under Neo Feminine Astrology. Yep, there it is.
There it is. I don't know why it won't extend it. It like once it gets to a certain thing, it just makes it small.
That's okay. They know. They'll be like, oh, Neo Feminine Astrology. Yeah. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And last night I just published a guided meditation for this full moon lunar eclipse. And I just started, along with something that I decided to do kind of spontaneously with this eclipse that I've been thinking about for a long time, is I started a meditation membership. And so that's where, so I'm really excited about it because I get such great feedback on my guided meditations. And so the meditation membership is where you can download the moon meditations that I do. So you can listen to them anytime on your phone. You don't have to be on YouTube. And you also get a weekly guided meditation. And that incorporates the astrology that's happening of the week. And it's like really simple. It's like 10 or 15 minutes max. So it's kind of like a nice accompaniment if you like the moon meditations that I do, but you want something that's every week to keep you on track. So all of that will be, me too. I'm really stoked on it. So that'll be, you can find out more about that on my Instagram or Facebook.
Yes, and Neo Feminine Astrology. And her, if you haven't heard her meditations yet, get in. She was born with a voice to do this. It's like, I'm so relaxed. If you can relax in Mars and Gemini, you got a gift.
I love that. Thank you. That's a very sweet compliment.
So check that out, everyone. And we got Serena Gibbs, giving some Serena. Gratitude here and some appreciation. Thank you that you stopped by. We're glad to have you watching. So thanks for coming.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, everyone, we're wrapping it up here. And so if you weren't able to watch this in live real time, you watch that replay, which is the same thing, but you just can't comment right away. But
you can still comment, because we'll see it.
Yes.
Yeah, and we can comment back because we'll get a little notification when you do that.
Exactly. So feel free to, as you go along, say what it is you're thinking or throw some things here and there, and we'll be able to respond back. And if there's anything you want to hear from us in the future, comment and let us know, because we have been doing these in a monthly fashion. And we want to address certain topics that are on your mind or what you would like to know more about or see the podcast go in any particular direction. So as we always say, it's very user driven. So help drive this bus, because we definitely want to hear from you. And we got Nicole's giving us some thanks too. She says that's fun. And we're having fun too. So we thank you for stopping by. Any last words, Shawna, for our broadcast today?
Yeah, just sending lots of love, and thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. We do. Because without you, what is this?
We're just talking to ourselves.
We're just talking. Which we could do, but it's much more fun with you. And this totally speaks to the Leo Aquarius polarity that we were talking about. So we are here to be your Leo. Come be our Aquarius. And we will work together. So, all right, everybody. Well, it's fabulous as usual. And we'll see you on the flip side. So happy eclipse blessings to all.
Bye.
Bye.